Call to order the meeting of Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. Today's date is August 23rd. The time is 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Can I get a roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Chairman Hanshee.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
Sixth President, we have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Approval, consideration of the agenda, and consideration approval of the minutes.
Chair,
Mr. Cross?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from the August 9th, 2022 regular meeting.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second. Rudy, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Chairman Hanshee.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy. All right, we got two hearings scheduled tonight on the public hearings. The first one's going to be 22-534, presentation, discussion, public hearing, and consideration of case P-22-9-CUP, a request by Don Astle of Edifice Architect LLC for a conditional use permit to facilitate the development of a 56-unit, two-story multifamily residential leased community, tentatively known as Circle Trail Suites, at the northeast corner of San Marcos Drive and Superstition Boulevard.
All right.
Please state your name and
Hello, Commission members. My name is Max Frank. I'm a planning intern on staff, and I am presenting for case number P-22-9-CUP, a request for approval of a conditional use permit for Circle Trail Suites, a multifamily leased residential community. To reiterate, this is a request to approve a conditional use permit to facilitate the development of approximately 3.8 acres for a 56-unit, two-story leased residential community that is to be located on the northeast corner of San Marcos Drive and Superstition Boulevard. The current zoning for the property is B1 General Commercial. As for neighboring zonings, there are MHP residential zones to the north and the west. There is a RVP residential zone to the south and a B1 commercial zone to the east. Here is the proposed site plan for the property. It is a gated community, and its primary entrance and exit point is on San Marcos Drive. This white square here is also where the community mailboxes will be located. There's also an emergency access gate off of North Monterey Drive here. It is surrounded by a 6-foot 4-inch CMU wall, and there are 3 pedestrian access gates off of Superstition Boulevard. The community is composed of 4 3-plex units and 4 4-plex units, and each of the units has a 2-car garage facing the private driveway. There are also 16 guest parking spaces located inside the community and a few externally right by the entrance exit gate. There are pedestrian walking paths that lead towards individual yard fences that allow access to each individual unit's private patio and yard. There is also a central amenities area which features a park green space, a pool, and a recreation building that has a barbecue, TVs, and a ping pong table. Here's the proposed landscape plan for the development. It has met all the city standards, and it has adequate landscaping along the streets and inside the development. Here are the proposed threeplex elevations. We worked with the designer to get the best designs possible. The elevations feature a various mix of material types and colors. There are multiple colors of stucco, smooth face CMU block veneer, black metal fascia, and hardy board wood siding. Here are the elevations for the fourplex units. The side elevations are identical for these as they were for the previous threeplex units. These elevations are also very similar to the threeplex ones, aside from the additional units located in the middle. And there are also private small balconies on the external units on the front elevation for both the threeplex and fourplex units. So here is the wall plans for the community. This is the external decorative fence. We worked with the developer to design a wall that would be complementary to the units. So the wall is primarily smooth CMU with split face CMU banding. There is also stucco columns with CMU caps. And here is an example of how the pedestrian access gates will look off of Superstition Boulevard. There is also an example of the motorized gate, entrance and exit gate, that'll be off of San Marcos, and you get a better idea of where those mailboxes will be located. Here is an example of the monument sign, and here is an example of the yard fence for each individual unit. The yard fence is 6 foot tall and is gated. And these yard fences are made from the same materials that the decorative fence are. A sign was posted at the site. A notification was sent out to all neighboring residences within 300 feet, and this proposed project was advertised in the newspaper. There was a neighborhood meeting held on June 20th. Unfortunately, no one attended. And our department has received no questions or concerns regarding this development. Staff recommends approval of P229 CUP subject to the conditions of approval found in the staff report. That is the end of my presentation. I am happy to answer any initial questions that you might have, but the developer is also here to help answer any more in-depth questions you may have. Thank you.
Commissioners, you have any questions you'd like to ask at this time?
You mentioned that these are leased units.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? I mean, how long is the lease?
That was not something that was expressed to me, but the developer may be able to answer that.
Hi, Dane, Astle, 922 North Gilbert Road, Mesa, Chair, Commissioners. How you doing? Good to meet you. Yeah, they're intended to be a standard market rate lease of variable sizes. They're not necessarily, they're never going to be a month-to-month style. They're going to
So
be
it's
a yearly,
classified as an apartment rather than...
a rental apartment, year at a time kind of thing. And again, I'm not the developer. I'm actually the architect. I appreciate that, but I can represent them, and I know that's their goal for the property.
I didn't understand the term. I just wanted clarification.
Yep.
So this is considered an apartment.
Yes, it's a rental unit. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Barker?
I have a question. On all the yards, there is a gate
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yes.
back. Oh, sorry. Does that gate, the one on Superstition, what does that open onto? Does it open onto Superstition from each yard, or does it open onto a pathway or a roadway, or what?
Yes, Commissioner Barker. Barker. These gates open onto a path that connects to a sidewalk on Superstition Boulevard.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, these
see where it
these
goes.
white lines here are
Gotcha.
the paths.
Gotcha, so that path, and the second question I had is you have you appear to have all of your visitor parking to the north side of the recreation area with none on the south side, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Well, the majority of the guest parking is on the north side of this recreation area, but there are also 2 spots of guest parking located right here. And there are
By the
another
gate.
guest parking space right here by the gate, and also an ADA parking space right there.
Seems kind of inconvenient for the people on the south side if they have guests. I see where they would go through the sidewalk areas and down to the next road.
Dane Astle here again. Just a question we had as well. How do we provide the best access, but how do we provide more amenity space was also the question. And so we ultimately, with staff and the developer, decided, although we are going to walk another 50, 60, 70 feet across there, it would be, when people arrive and guests are there, we're hoping that that amenity space is where they all gather. So they might not necessarily go straight over to the unit, but occasionally, of course, they will. Leaving us a little more room in the grass area, a little more room in the pool area was the goal for that.
Any other commissioners have any questions?
Not quite yet.
Does he have a presentation to present, or?
No, he does not.
Okay. So with that being said, do you have any other questions at this time? Before I open it to the public.
No, I suppose not.
Any questions before I open it to the public, then?
Hey, Rudy.
Because then I can't call them back up, so.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Can we get the AC turned down?
Is the AC turned on?
Yeah, I guess it is. Just seems humid, sticky.
Thank you, Frank. I guess that's all we have at this time.
Thank you very much, Chair Hanch.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to come up and ask a question? Please come up to the microphone, state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes to.
My name's Sharon Rollins, and, excuse me,
Can you pull the microphone down, please?
you mean I'm not tall enough?
Thank you.
And my address is 574 West Greasewood, and we were out of town during the time that you had this hearing, which is a problem when you have this going on in the summertime, and we did not get a notification because I guess we have an acre and a quarter, and I guess we're past the 300 feet. I don't know. If you look there, Monterey dead ends right there at Greasewood, and our property's right there at Greasewood and excuse me, Monterey. And my question and concern is, with that many units and that many people that are leasing, and they're having people come and visit, they're not going to have enough room to park inside there. And the problem with going down Monterey, if you've been down Monterey, there's 2 places that, 2 units there that are an acre and a quarter, I believe, also. And there's no place for, they're going to park on the streets, just a plain single street. And then, of course, you have the area in the back that's never been anything done with, that old mobile home park that's still a disaster, that has never been addressed. And we've lived there 30 years, have never had any problems or anything, but we have had people come down Monterey, and we have a gated fence going across that's a barrier across where the street is there, and they've run through that and broke that out. That's a steel post, like 3 steel posts, 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning, we usually don't even hear it until the next day when we get up and see the aftermath of it. But we're concerned that there's not going to be parking for all of those people, and they're going to be coming in and out and going by that mobile home park that is adjacent to our property that goes down Monterey and Greasewood. Well, Monterey turns on Greasewood and accesses out to San Marcos. So it's going to be a lot of people when you're talking about a lease facility. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anybody else like to speak? Come on up, sir.
My name is William Rollins, and I reside at 574 West Greasewood, same as my wife. And she kind of didn't hit the point that across that Monterey, right into the northeast corner of the property they're developing, there's about a foot of water that runs through there at about 100 miles an hour. And I would just like to know what they're going to do with it, that they're not going to turn it over like the development right across the street here. They put all the water in with a great drain system. It's a beautiful facility. But the water just dumps out on Plaza and floods the poor guy across the street. And they never done nothing with the water. So the water just floods his property, washes right down and comes right across ours. And I just don't think the city has any interest for us, because they don't let us know what they're going to do with all that water. And this year is a good example of lots of water. And I think that there should be somebody here that could answer that, what they're going to do with the drainage water that's going to come to their property, that's right now just goes right straight across their property diagonally. And from what I've seen, it's a lot of water, and I don't know what they're going to be able to do with it. We already have water issues there. But anyways, that's beside the point. And the parking is really an important issue, because I own a carpet store here in town, and I've put carpet in some of these developments that have been approved by the city. We go to put the carpet in the place. We can't even park on the side of the street that the house is. We have to park on the other side, because the developers laid out the building so that the street has half of the street is parking. It's crazy, and that's what I think we're going to find with this high-density condition here. And I'm okay with developing it. I just think that there should be a lot of thinking going on about where all these people are going to park and how they're all going to live in that small community. That's 60-some units, so you're going to have about 130 people in there, plus kids, I assume. I don't know, but that's a lot of cars to park in that little spot. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak at this time? At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, would you like to say anything at this time?
Sure.
Commissioner Cross?
Yeah, as we've discussed at several of these projects, parking is always an issue. It seems like our developers are going right down to the letter of the law regarding parking. Apache Junction has a formula for parking, and they meet the parking requirements right to the gnat. And I find that unfortunate. I really, really wish they would just take a little bit more time to consider that these type of units require a little bit more parking space. It would be nice if you take one or two of the units out and make those parking as well. Because you know darn well, it's gonna happen, just like they said. Monterey's gonna have parking all up and down the street because, you know, just about every family seems to have 2 vehicles. And it does not appear that there's parking available on the, out in front of the garages of each of these units. So, yeah, just that, and does staff have any information regarding the runoff on the wash?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Cross, a development typically needs to satisfy a couple of criteria. They can't change where a drainageway or a wash enters a property. They can't change where a wash leaves a property. They have to accommodate for the same water flow, in other words, accommodate the historic flow. And they also have to create retention areas on site, either above ground or underground, to displace the water that is being displaced by the buildings. So the project will be required to meet our engineering guidelines. Water will still enter the same place, will still leave the same place, but the volumes should not change, and development on the property should not add to a drainage issue.
Not seeing any retention basin, that's for sure. So,
It's probably underground at this point.
can staff,
If staff can answer, yeah, Max, if you know the answer. Probably underground.
Yes, there is retention located on the property. The park green space area acts as retention for it.
okay.
Thank you, Frank. Any other commissioners have questions or
Just a
discussion,
comment.
comment?
I just have a comment. It seems as though a small piece of that green space could become parking. It would accommodate it. And it's because I see a parking problem too. I mean, I know that each unit has a 2-car garage. Got that. However, if a 6-year-old kid has a birthday party, they're going to invite 20 or 30 kids out of their classroom. Each one of those children is going to be driven there. They won't be dropped off. Moms will come in and talk and so forth. So where are all those cars going to park? Is there room on those streets in front of it? I don't know.
Do you think they're gonna fit 20 or 30 people inside them houses?
Hey, I got a small house, I did it. I've done it several times.
Break out the shoehorn.
Yeah.
Just an observation.
Chair. Yeah, I mean,
Commissioner Cantwell, sorry.
along similar lines, you know, technically the code requires 2 parking places per unit, and that is handled with a 2-car garage. One of the things we have seen with any number of developments is the standard 2-car garage has trouble handling 2 of today's cars, particularly if one of them is, let's say, a full-size pickup or a good-size SUV. So your ability to park 2 cars in a 2-car garage has been an issue. Technically, you have enough spaces. Yeah, I would like to see some of them distributed on the south side as well. I'll take your word for it that you have the water retention. As far as parking on the streets, I think that will not be too much of an issue because you're talking about, what is it, a 6 or an 8-foot wall around the perimeter? And really, the only way in is going to be the main gate because the back gate is intended for exit only and then emergency access for police and fire if necessary.
So you have parking on San Marcos?
Possibly,
Possibly, because there's no man gates over there on Monterey
No.
as well.
yeah.
No entrance gates?
So, you know, that's, I think parking is going to be an issue here, but Technically, it does meet code. That's it for me.
Anybody else have any discussion?
Yep. Well, one other thing.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Dirk.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bigman.
We need to increase the number of parking spaces for these facilities that we're putting in. This is like the second one in recent time where we've had very minimal extra parking. It's okay, but quite honestly, you have ADA parking 300 feet away from the corner of somebody else's property, their unit, you know.
Two right there.
Somebody in a wheelchair is not gonna wanna be wheeling all the way to the other end of a street to visit their friend. I certainly wouldn't. I don't even wanna walk that far. Okay? But I think there needs to be an adjustment either to the city code to increase this parking for these types of facilities. And we need better information on these drains. As we all know, Apache Junction is full of little washes, and they all like to run when it rains. And we all have trouble when they run. Whether it's in a facility like this, a facility where, in my neighborhood, I got Weeks Wash running 300 feet away from my house. And we all know what Weeks Wash is capable of doing. Not only do we have that, we got Bulldog and everybody else coming into town. We need more clarification on these retention centers that you're putting in these properties so that we know that they're not gonna cause a problem either upstream or downstream. And that's all.
Commissioner Cross?
Just one other thing was, not a huge fan of taking B1 commercial property and changing it to high-density housing. I know it's in the general plan on this one, but we're also limited on the number of B1 properties we have.
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner Cross, on this one, this neighborhood hasn't really been that popular for commercial businesses.
Yeah, I realize.
So, I mean, aside from that,
With that, Rudy, could you explain too why we're doing this as a CUP versus a rezoning hearing as well? That way the public could understand too.
Mr. Chairman, about a year and a half ago, Nick processed a text amendment. There were some changes made to our commercial zoning districts, and one of those changes, at the request of some folks who are developing properties currently and at the time, they requested that multifamily development be made easier in the commercial zoning districts. In other words, to allow them by conditional use permit as opposed to requiring a rezoning. Basically, it's a shorter process. This is something that our city council agreed with. They did make that code change, and that's why this is a conditional use permit, which only goes to the commission as opposed to a rezoning, which would have come to the commission for a recommendation and then on to city council for a final decision. So basically, it's the process, the process time was cut in half.
Okay. Thank you. So basically with this, if we approve this, this is it, so. And, I mean, you know, they do meet the standards, whether we like the parking or not. We're not here to adjust codes at this time.
But we're under a cup too, so.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hanchey, if I could interject.
Yeah.
We do have the architect, perhaps he could have some answers for you regarding parking, how that's, we have 20 by 20 spaces. That is the internal dimensions to the garage. That helps ease pickups adequately, fitting within that parking space and not using the visitor parking. Perhaps Dane could elaborate on that a bit. Also regarding retention, something that wasn't mentioned as well is since we do have the retention there in the center, that is going to alleviate some of the flow that actually that is currently flows through the property.
I appreciate that, Commissioners. Dane Astle again. Yes, we do intend to make the garages a usable place, and we want them to be a non-storage type garage, so that'll be something stipulated for those who live here. And the excess spaces, I know that it sounds a little silly to think that what if we just had 2-car garages and no guest to fit the code, and we didn't want to do that, so we kind of met in the middle a little bit on that, and I agree. There could be moments where more would be very useful and moments when it would never get used. And I do agree, when we were talking, I saw Monterey and I thought, okay, if that did need to become an occasional place, I would like to see more connectivity over to that street. That might be something we could talk about, of course, just throughout the process. But as it relates to the civil engineering, I can promise you this, we'll work and have worked closely with the city engineering department on how we are going to accommodate retainage and the drainage situation on this property. And we would not have gotten to this phase without carefully working through that with staff, and are comfortable with the overall solution being one, like is stated tonight, addressed in a way that is going to only make this place better for all those around it, including maintaining the water of this site itself and distributing it appropriately into the storm drain. So we won't, of course, ever go down a path that wouldn't fit those standards. Any other questions I might be able to help with?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Barker.
Don't know whether this is for you or not.
I'll do my best.
Will this be, who will manage this complex?
So this will be managed under an association with one owner. And I won't have every detail like you said, but I do know that there'll be rules and regulations for those who live there, and it'll be managed by a company at all times, all aspects of the property, from landscape all the way down to the repair of units and keeping things clean and functional, similar to storm drain type thing.
And will that manager be on the, at the complex, or will that be?
I think it's common that one may end up there depending over time as some trust is built with some of the tenants. I don't believe that's listed as something they're doing right now.
Oh, okay. And when did you intend to break ground for this?
As I understand it, non-contractor,
Okay.
non-developer, guy that doesn't write the checks, I understand that they would love to be building this now. Again, a lot of people are struggling with some of the trades and the supply chains and
Right.
all this. So pending all of that difficulty, the goal would be to be building this now. This is a group that has more than one facility like this and would love to have it built as soon as possible. So no reason to delay, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Chair.
Commissioner Croft.
Have you considered taking the grass park area, and it's currently a rectangle, turning it north and south, and taking some of the parking on the north end there and bringing it around to the, let's say, if you turn that and butt it up against the recreational area, it would probably free up 3 to 4 spots on the south side.
That's a design solution that we wouldn't be opposed to. It's something that we haven't explored on this design, but if it was the commission's desire to see a parking area on the bottom side of the pool and that other area be eaten up by some of the greens so we don't lose the retention and the ability to have that open space for use, that's something we're definitely willing to work with everyone on. Not a problem at all.
Okay.
And Commissioner Cross, that would be just let's say this project does get approved tonight, that would be an administrative change that would be finalized prior to construction
Yeah,
documents.
and we are more than happy to do that with staff, not a problem.
One more question, my norm.
Commissioner Barker?
Everybody knows what's coming. Have you considered having a dog park?
We have, and we go back and forth on projects regarding dog parks, and I think it could evolve into that. I like them. I do them very often on projects that I'm involved in. In this case, there wasn't one designed in or desired, but I do believe that down the road, a portion of that green area might become one.
Yeah, well, it might become one whether you want it
Yeah,
to or
whether
not.
we want it or not,
Yes.
it will be asked for.
Yes, it is green space after all.
Yep.
Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate the comment.
Do I hear Commissioner Barker planning on moving in?
No, Commissioner Barker's planning on getting as many dog parks as she can get.
You only have one dog, Commissioner.
I have two.
Oh, my mistake.
To travel.
They like to travel, yes.
Well, the nice thing about this is it is within short walking distance too.
Yes.
Our dogs.
It is.
Just
It
down
is.
the street.
I noticed that. Was that Idaho that
Yes.
dog park's on? And
Yep.
Yes.
there's some development that we would hope also this would start to begin a revitalization process, allowing for a few more people to maybe spice up some of the retail in the future. So it'd be kind of a fun planning growth along this corridor here in Superstition.
Have you thought about possibly putting some man gates or pedestrian access points on San Marcos or on Monterey?
We have absolutely no problem doing that. There's no intention behind us blocking those off at the moment, just so you're aware. So we'd be very open to those. Those connections are mostly there now. We just need to provide the gate for it, and I don't disagree. That could be a nice option for the moment that Monterey or San Marcos become a necessary stopping point or access for the units that are closer to them.
Chair? My concern
Commissioner
with-
Count.
My concern with that would be that would tend to encourage parking on Monterey and San Marcos.
That would, yeah, because it
So you're
creates
better
a
off not
shortcut.
having access.
No gates on Monterey.
That would discourage parking on Monterey. There will be parking on those roads, either on the garage side or on the opposite side, for guests. They're gonna park on the road and, at some point, it's just not overnight, but, that's what people will do during the day is my guess.
Well, I don't know if you'll have the problem during the day so much as you would at night.
That's all fire lane, so.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking inside, it's all fire
Yeah.
line, yeah. Other than this little stretch here and here,
Red dot line.
yeah. We need to reopen it to the public, correct, Joel?
Well, yes, and I have a comment too, if you want.
Sure.
Well, maybe you don't want, but
I always appreciate your input,
are
Joel.
you done with the applicant?
I am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As you know, this is a conditional use permit.
Right,
So you can go beyond what the code requires, because the code allows that. You can ask for reasonable changes. And, you've heard members of the public speak about parking. A bunch of you have issues with the parking. You can ask for more parking spots. I know the developer's gonna throw something at me, but, but there are some legitimate issues here, especially in that neighborhood. So you can ask for that to be done, and if you do that, especially if you want the pedestrian entrances, I suggest you continue this and they come back with a new plan. I would not make it administrative, because it's gonna be your conditional use permit approval, not staff's. So sorry, Sydney, but I just think if they're gonna do that, come back, give them some time to do it, but give them, before you make your motion, let them know exactly what you're looking for. Not just generally, oh, we want more parking spaces. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, we want some entrances. Well, where do you want them? Be specific, especially if they're going to go to the cost of redoing a site plan And also, I would not recommend doing anything with that drainage area, because there's certain calculations that they had to go through to get that exact piece. And if you do that, that's gonna be probably another big expense with an engineer, I think, for a new water assessment. So, maybe there's another way to do it, but if that's what your concern is, or you can just pass it as is. And by the way, there is a consultant that the city's gonna hire for a zoning. And so when the rules come up regarding parking, you're gonna have plenty of chance to comment on that also, just to let you know. And yes, please do open up the public hearing once again. Even if people already spoke, they get to speak again.
Right.
I do have another comment.
Commissioner Crowe?
And this is to the architect. On the north side there, you have a 1, 2, 3, there's 4 kind of wide, light gray areas.
Yeah.
So to the right and to the left of the parking on the north side, those gray, light gray strips, what are those?
Landscaping.
Landscape area, Dane, Astle, sorry, back to the podium.
Yes.
Yeah, those are landscaped areas with shrubs and trees.
So they can't be changed, all right.
Yeah. We're trying to, again, we have 128 parking stalls of the 112. We felt like we went as far as we believed would be used the most commonly. There'll be those days where, yeah, you're right, there could be some stalls, at fault. So again, whatever way this needs to go, if we can work with staff and touch some things up, we're definitely here for you. We're gonna work together. We want it to be a project everyone is happy with. We felt as though, as is, we were meeting code and beyond in this case. We were wanting to move it forward, and if a few stalls could be negotiated with staff and found acceptable, we'll do that with them in one way or another.
Okay.
And Commission, while I do agree with Joel that it is your decision whether you continue the project or not, I have no doubt in my mind that we could explore the size of that open space area and determine that probably additional spaces can be located within that area.
Sidney and I have done this on more than one project. I know he has a passion for design, and we've worked closely on each project to get to where it needs to be. We will continue to do that.
Chair.
Mr. Cantwell?
The rule of thumb that I have seen on similar projects has been, assuming that you have two-car garage for every unit, which technically meets code, then an additional space for about 1/4 of the units seems to be a number that we have wound up with, whether accidentally or intentionally in the past. That would be 14 parking places, which I think right now internally you're at 12 or 13.
16.
16? Okay.
Well,
The-
3 of them are outside technically.
Yeah.
Well, by the
Yeah.
gate, yeah.
So I didn't include those, so that's where I come up with the 13. The concern here is in part the number of them, but also the fact that there's nothing on the south serving the folks on the Superstition Boulevard side. They'd have to go all the way across the recreation area and so on to get to those, and it's just the accessibility.
Yeah. We do have space if the pool was rotated to accommodate a parking area on that side.
There you go.
As is. And I can work with staff to get, I want to say 2 or 3 stalls available to that side. I'd have to evaluate it, but that seems to me like something we could work through.
I think that would be reasonable. 'Cause, you're going to have problems with all of those people, that's where you have most of your units.
Sure.
That's where you're going to have most of your demand for extra parking.
Sure.
And that's where people are going to not be happy that they have to walk the farthest.
Yep.
I have one question as well. Where are the doors at on these units?
The units are accessed by the public from what would appear to be the street sides or the rear. So it's Where the gates are, it's a courtyard entrance for each unit, and then, of course, through their garage side, in man doors through the garage.
Well, yeah, I'm saying for the public, so if I'm Amazon,
Amazon would be taken care of through a package drop at the entrance area.
so they're gonna get all their deliveries.
That's the intention now, and of course, we'll have to work through the logistics of it to make sure it doesn't become.
Well, yeah, because the other concern is if they're getting deliveries, everything's a fire zone. Where would they park? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I had to deal with that in a parking lot today with an Amazon guy.
Moving in, moving out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna live there, you're a resident, you get to deal with that. That's their choice to move there. That's, at least that's how I look at it when it comes to stuff like that, but. All right, go ahead and open it back up to the public. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm gonna reopen it back to the public. If anybody, again, would like to speak, if you've spoke once, you can still speak again. Please come forward up to the microphone, state your name and address. We're strategizing game. You can both speak, so you didn't have to have her, just her.
I gotta move it down again, because I'm so tall. Well, my concern when you.
I need you to state your name and
Oh,
address
Sharon
again.
Rollins,
Thank you.
574 West Greasewood. And my concern was when you mentioned them changing the gates going out. That would make it even worse, because then that would make it easy access for the residents there, but it also would make a more difficult parking problem on the streets. And so you're going to have a lot more, difficulty parking. And because those areas have, it's a lot of dirt area, you're going to have a lot of dirt flying everywhere. I mean, it's not going to be pretty with having people flying in and out, and, they drive fast anyway through there. We didn't used to have that much traffic going down Monterey and then turning to Greasewood, because Greasewood's blocked on our street, it's dead end. But if you turn left by the mobile home park, they just make that loop through there and go really fast, But the thing is that when you get a lot more, and if they're younger people, it can be like a raceway in there, and especially if they have a lot of guests coming, when you have a leased project like this, that makes it a little different. Another thing, in the wintertime, that we have a lot more people, and they have, if they have grandparents or people visiting, that means more parking. So I just find it's really that you guys have to start thinking about a different way of putting this together so that there's, besides just two-car garage, you have to think about the whole project. So, because like I said, we've lived there for years, and we understand that there's growth in the city. We like having growth and all, but the fact that you're going to have just this many units in a small, really small acreage, and then cram them all there together and have all these cars, I mean, it just seems kind of irresponsible. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, I'm gonna close out the public speaking. All right, we're back to discussing again. As Joel said, we can put further conditions in. We can ask them to come back with the new plan.
would like to see a continuance.
Yeah. As Commissioner Cross says, I'm kind of favoring, I'd like to see it redrawn with more parking before I vote on it personally. That way I know what we're gonna get.
Are we looking?
Yeah,
And that would be the other contingency I'd like to,
We need to, 5 cars, 6 cars?
I'm kind of with, I'm not counting these ones out here, and then 4 of these spaces are ADA, which I know they have to have, and it's a requirement, and it's good to have it. But that's then limiting the public as well for parking. Which, if I show up there, that's a spot that I couldn't park in. So now there's basically 9 spots inside there for guest parking in reality. Unless you're disabled.
My number is 4 additional spots.
And the other thing is, if you are disabled and you're visiting somebody down here on the south side, that's a jog.
I agree. I would like to see at least, 4 spots, maybe 5 spots on the south side, one of them being handicapped. So move one of the handicapped spots from the north side to the south side and add a total of 5 parking spots. But I don't know if that can be fit in there or not.
I don't know. I'd like to see, because like I said, if you're gonna add one more, are you saying add another ADA?
No.
Oh.
Relocate one ADA to the south side. That adds a spot to the front side for.
But that only gives, you got how many units down here?
Right.
That only gives you one ADA on that
So
side.
you put one ADA from up here down to here and change that to just a regular parking
Right.
and add 4 more or 5 more.
I say you have at least 2 down there. That's
Okay.
half your tenants.
Well, this is not age restricted and it's multifamily. I think
I'm just saying
one
I would
is
have at least 2
probably
down there.
sufficient on the south side.
I'd say at least 2, because half your units are down there.
Well, and, one of the options would be literally slide all the amenities up and move the guest parking to the south side rather than the north side.
Well, then you've got the same problem.
You
You've
got
got
the same
people on the
problem.
north side.
But then, then you could.
Well, we don't have to design it for
I
them.
know,
They
you
can.
don't have, that's their problem. Now, the number of ADA slots is code requirement, correct, Rudy?
Typically, an ADA space is required for every 25 required parking spaces. And I would just respectfully point out to the commissioners that really moving one ADA space, it's really 2 spaces, because you need the space and you need the landing. So if you
Right.
put an ADA space on the south side of the pool, maybe you have room for 1 or 2 more regular spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, an ADA space really is 2 parking places
Yeah.
and 3 spots.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Crowe?
I'm going to push back a little bit on this. Because somebody has to, right?
Yes.
Sure.
No, everybody's opinion is valid.
Yeah, and we've seen a bunch of these type of developments before, and in the last year or so. But so far, none of them have been built. So it's hard to go survey how the parking situation is actually working, or not in these developments. So right now, all we really have is the existing code, and that's what, the architects and developers are using. And in my opinion, we should let the city see how this falls out before we start adjusting the existing code based on, and I agree, and parking looks a little sketchy, but that's what we're telling people is required for these developments. So that's where I'm at, as opposed to us starting to say, oh, you need a parking space over here or there. I know we can, but it's,
Mr. Chair.
makes it difficult for everybody. Thank you.
I think, Jesse, that we have given the folks the idea of what we would sure like to see. And I think having given them that thought, if they're going to work with Sydney, I think that they may well try to get a couple more parking spots in there if they can, but I agree with you, Jesse. I agree. They know what we'd like to see, but until our code changes, they come with the expectation that this is what they have to have.
It's a valid point.
One other point along those same lines is, I am kind of used to 55 and older communities where, let's just say, we tend to have more toys. You know, like I have a neighbor who has a car and then a truck to pull his camper and then a golf cart and 2 motorcycles. And he's single. Okay?
That's why we have storage facilities.
Right. I understand, but that impacts some of the things. Most of these apartments are going to tend to be oriented towards, I'll say, a younger population that is less likely to have all the toys.
And if
What
they do,
younger
they
people
will
live
have-
in your neighborhood that don't have toys?
Well, but that's a decision the resident
Right,
will
that's the
make. The
decision.
resident will
This-
see
this
what kind of
forces
space
that
they have.
on the resident.
Here's the one unique thing about this property that we haven't really seen with the others, is they all have a 2-car garage.
Yes,
The other ones
this
had
is the
not,
first one.
to where they did have a little bit more free parking spaces. So that's what makes this one a little unique and a little bit more difficult, I think, for us to kind of wrap our heads around. So, yes, by numbers, it has all the parking spots.
Yes,
But everybody has 2 that nobody else can use no matter what.
yes.
So I think that's where we're all struggling a little bit here. Because I can't borrow one of your spaces if I have somebody over, to where the others, they did, because there was free spaces out there, kind of. So I think that's where we're all kind of looking, and
So do we want to continue this and let that,
Commission, if I could interrupt,
yes.
just slightly, forgive me.
This
It sounds like there's a consensus that an additional 4 to 5 spaces would be needed. And that would be a balance of how to reduce the required retention area, maybe be creative in readjusting, reoriented, or perhaps slightly reducing the size of the pool space. We also have space on the west side here. This is a 44-foot drive aisle here, and perhaps we could shift some buildings over slightly, and we'll have additional space for parking. So I see lots of opportunities to add some 4 to 5 spaces, and I'm confident that I could work with the architect to facilitate that solution.
Mr. Chair, I would prefer not to continue this.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bergman?
I have 3 things on this piece of property. One is the parking situation, which we've already discussed until we're already putting in little pencil marks. And other is this going to have private garbage service, or is this going to have a community garbage service?
There's dumpsters.
And I see one dumpster up here that somebody's going to have to go 600 feet.
Yeah, might be one there.
Is that one?
2.
Okay.
I see right off.
Well, I'm kind of old and Sydney's making things kind of small,
Right behind you.
so I couldn't tell what that was.
Boy, age has been a big thing up here tonight.
I'm still below you, so. Not by a lot, but a little bit. And my third thing is this. We've seen a number of these projects come before us and get approved by the city council. And they're still sitting there a pile of dirt. This is a CUP request. And the engineer has said that the developer is anxious to get started and get finished with this, which means the guy wants his money. And I've got no issue with that, but how long is it going to take him? If, say, for instance, in a year's time, they haven't done anything on this property, the revocation of the CUP.
Don't they expire after a certain amount of time anyway?
I believe it's 12 months, yes. The project needs to be initiated within 12 months, or else it can be brought to the commission for revocation.
I don't mean bring it back to us, I mean just flat out, flat out take it off.
I think our
No.
illustrious city attorney would say bring it back.
Unfortunately, you used to be able to do that, but there were, Home Builders Association got involved, changed the law. You have to bring it back to revoke. You can say, okay, it's good for a year, but if we don't see any activity, we can bring it back and we can revoke it. So you have to do that under the law.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Okay. Well, I believe we do have a good planning and zoning department, and I think they can make sure that they'll get our wishes done. 'Cause I think we're close.
I don't have a problem either way.
So, Mr. Chair, shall we go on to the finding of facts?
Yes, I think we should, and if you don't want it to do that way, then you can vote it down, and then we can modify it in that way. So if you want it to be conditional to where they bring it back, then don't vote for or don't vote for approval.
I got a question.
Sure.
Can we add in the verbiage of the conditional,
can-
in the
We can
cup,
add anything we want.
stating that we would require 4 more or 5 more parking spots as a part of the approval?
Yes, but you also should say that staff is working with the developer to add them. And it'd be at staff's discretion on where they go, because sounds like Sydney can work with them,
Right.
but you're not designating where they're gonna go. So
Right.
that's why I suggested you come back, that way you're fully satisfied, but if you wanna go ahead with staff, that's fine also.
Yeah, I don't care where they are, just so they're there.
Yeah. But I will tell you, I'm sorry, Sydney, I have to add this, and Rudy, I think it was 20 years ago. It was called Kaufman and Broad.
Oh, crud.
Those were the hammerheads at Cortez and Baseline roughly. And I know that's a little bit different, but that parking was horrific. And the council that voted on that was warned, hey, you need more parking. And they didn't add more parking. And so we then had problems on Cortez parking because the mobile home park people couldn't even get into their entryway without a clearance. And that had to be dealt with no parking signs on the west-hand side of the road. So things like that could happen. Just keep in mind if you don't ask for enough parking.
Mr. Chair, Joel?
Commissioner
Could, if we made it one of the, what do they call them? Conditions, that staff work with the developer to create at least X number of parking spots. That would be in the CUP, and they would have to do that, right?
Yeah, if that's how you want to phrase it, that's fine.
I trust Sydney.
Yeah, we're trusting you, Sydney.
Well, we'd have to have the total number of,
Well, that's why I said X, because I didn't know what number you wanted. I have 4.
well, we'd have to agree as a commission how many we'd want.
Right.
So, as a commission, how many do we want?
So you put that in the motion.
Yes. Needs to go in the motion.
I don't have a problem with 4. 10 would be nice, but I think.
Yeah,
4 would
that's
be-
ridiculous. That's an over ask.
I have a question for Sydney then. How many, looking at the map right now, or the layout, how many do you think you could comfortably put in without causing tremendous undue hardship?
Realistically, probably 4. Some areas would shrink, and we would explore moving that pool north-south. 4 is probably most likely. We will try to do 5. That would be a stretch goal, but probably most realistically would be a 4, just looking at that. And also going forward with, as Joel mentioned, with the zoning ordinance rewrite, right now the developer is, taking a chance really. They are following the letter of the code, and they are taking a chance at the podium because it's a subjective issue, right, and concern. So, but going forward with the zoning ordinance rewrite, we will address a certain percentage of that, so a developer and applicants get clear understanding of what would be needed. And believe it or not, that guest parking space is really a discussion all over the valley. If you take a look at zoning ordinances all over the valley, they kind of vary. So there's really a spectrum, because it's not a hard science. But we will definitely work with the applicant and address it in the zoning ordinance.
So could we all live with 4? To write that in as a condition?
At least, the term at least 4,
At least
which
4.
gives them the option
Right.
I'd
of
like to
going
see-
more
A
if
minimum of
possible.
4 additional spots.
I'd like to see 6, but I could be okay with 4.
I'd like to see 10, but
Yeah.
we know that ain't
They
happening.
would
I got
sit
shut down
vacant
real
half
fast
of
for
the
that.
year.
Say again?
I
It
got
would-
shut down real fast for that one.
Yeah.
So what do we have to do? Findings of fact next?
Yes. Somebody want to do the finding of fact?
You have that
I have it, I'll take it.
All right.
right here.
Okay, findings of fact. As required by the zoning ordinance, a CUP request may be approved by the planning commission after consideration has been given to 7 different criteria. The criteria is outlined in the text below. Adequacy of roadways, off-street parking, public facilities, and service to accommodate the proposed use. Now, do I read the applicant's response, or do we just discuss it?
Well, you just, if I
Just
may, you just
do-
set out what you believe the finding of fact should be, and then get consensus from the members.
Okay, I think we have consensus that this is met with the addition of at least 4 additional parking places.
Yep.
Yes, I would agree.
Negative impacts arising from emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, lighting, vibrations, smoke, heat, or glare. This is a residential. I don't think that there's
Yeah.
going to be any of that involved.
I don't think there'd be any.
Agreed.
Contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or the negative impact on neighborhood property values. I
Negative.
don't think there'll be, in
There
fact.
shouldn't be.
It should go
Should
the
improve.
opposite.
This might give some incentive to get that old trailer park
Oh.
developed,
And the storage.
yeah. Compatibility with surrounding uses and structures. Again, I don't think that
Yep.
there's any issues there.
No, there shouldn't be any.
Conformance with general plan and city policies, we're changing this from B1 to multifamily, which we normally don't like to do, but I think given this area, that's not an issue.
Plus it falls in
And
the
it's
downtown.
part of the general
Well,
plan.
and it falls in that downtown corridor.
Yep.
Downtown redevelopment.
Yep.
6, screening and buffering of uses. The perimeter walls are
And all the landscaping, it's
all
all there.
landscaping, yep. Unique nature of the property, use and/or development's physical characteristic.
Yeah, it's,
No.
Fine.
Yeah, this is all in pretty good shape.
Yep.
Okay, so then I would move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the conditional use permit case P-22-9-CUP, a request by Dane, Astle of Edifice Architecture for a 56-unit, 2-story leased residential community tentatively named Circle Trail Suites, located at the northeast corner of Superstition Boulevard and San Marcos Drive, subject to the conditions in the staff report and One additional condition for an addition of a minimum of 4 additional guest parking spaces.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Rudy, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Chairman Hanshi.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the commission has voted yes with an additional condition. Your decision stands unless somebody appeals it within the next 20 days, then it would go on to the city council.
Thank you, Rudy.
And Sydney will have fun.
All right, now to our second hearing. We got 22-541, presentation, discussion, public hearing and consideration of case P-22-65-PZ, a proposed rezoning of the southern portion of parcel 103-21-019A as an alpha located at the northeast corner of Starr Road and Old West Highway, from public institution to RS-GR, general rural low-density, single-family detached residential, to facilitate a land split with the intent to sell.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Erica Hernandez. I'm a planning intern. I have a very short presentation for you, definitely less complicated than what you just heard. This is a request by Crossroads Southern Baptist Church to rezone the southerly portion of their parcel to facilitate a land split. You can see this parcel is generally located on the northeast corner of Starr Road and Old West Highway. The current zoning is public and institutional, and the proposed zoning is RSGR. Is currently surrounded by residential in the north, the east, and the west, as well as commercial in the west. A little background about this parcel: the church was constructed in 1983, and the manufactured home was placed on the property in 1997 as pastor's quarters. It is no longer needed, and it is currently vacant. This is the proposed site plan right here. You see Lot B. It is approximately 1.25 acres.
Is it 1.25 acres or just under? Or?
It's approximately 1.25 acres, the minimum, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Erica, Mr. Chairman, it's actually a little larger than 1.25 acres gross.
Okay.
The GR zone and the RS 54 zone are the only 2 zoning districts in the city which calculate lot size on the gross, including adjacent right-of-way, whether they've been dedicated or not. So it's actually just a little bit bigger if we look at the gross acreage.
So it'll qualify for all horse
Yes,
rights
sir.
and all that. Okay, thank you.
A sign was posted at the site. Notices were sent out to property owners within 300 feet around the proposed site, the subject site, and the case was advertised in the newspaper. There was a neighborhood meeting on July 14th. 3 residents joined us, and they were mainly concerned about the proposal being for commercial, but once it was explained that it was for residential, they didn't have any comments. Beyond that, staff has not received any comments or concerns or questions regarding this rezoning request. So with that, staff recommends approval of P-22-65-PZ, subject to the conditions of approval found in the staff report. There is a future public hearing on September 6th with City Council, and that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners have any questions?
I have none.
Nope.
Sounds like a good idea.
You're free to
Alrighty.
go. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anybody? Yeah. At this time, anybody from the public, would they like to speak at this time? Again, anybody from the public like to speak? Hearing none at this time, I'm going to close the public. Commissioners, anyone to add?
Looks good.
I like it when we go the other way and bring back more horse property, so I'm fully in support of this.
I was gonna say, we haven't done one of these where
We haven't.
we create our SGR. It's a good thing.
Make a motion,
Yeah, do I have a motion, anybody?
Chair?
Commissioner Cross?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Apache Junction City Council the approval of case P 2265PZ, a rezoning request by Crossroads Southern Baptist Church, Inc., owner, represented by Shane Buntrock of Buntrock, Harrison, and Hardner Law, TPLC, for a rezoning of approximately 1.25 acres of the southern half of APN 103-21-019A from public and institutional, P1, to general rural, low-density, single-family detached residential, RSGR, to facilitate a land split subject to the following conditions of approval. And that would be 1 through 3.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes,
Chairman Hanshi.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. This case will go to the city council on September 2nd? 6th, I'm sorry, with your recommendation of approval.
Thank you, Rudy. There's no old business listed.
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Any new business?
No, sir.
Information and report?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Director's report?
No, sir.
All right, selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose. Do I have a motion?
Chair, I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on September 13th, 2022 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard. In the event there are no items to be brought forward to the commissions, these meetings may be canceled. Notification of cancellation properly posted and the commission notified by staff.
Second.
Rudy, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Chairman Hanshi,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, hereby adjourn this meeting at 8:17.